All right, let's get to talking about amazing staff members and colleagues. We have some wonderful images to share after I read our land acknowledgement and introduce you all to Paul and Teresa. So first, we acknowledge the Lenni Lenape as the original people of this land and their continuing relationship with their territory. For over 10,000 years, they've been the caretakers of these lands and the Delaware River. Lenni Lenape means original people. Over a period of 250 years, many Lenape people were removed and dispersed throughout the country. Some took refuge with other tribes. A large number of Lenape families remain in the homelands and continue the traditions of their ancestors up to our present day. This land acknowledgement by itself is a small gesture. I encourage all of you to please go out and research and learn more about Lenni Lenape people today, as well as their history. I want to remind everyone that we are recording and this will be available on YouTube on our channel in the future. So I'm going to welcome Teresa DeAngelis. She joined the Clay Studio in March 2021, often referring to herself as a nonprofit Swiss Army knife. Teresa has spent nearly her entire career in the nonprofit arts field. Prior to her role at the Clay Studio, she worked at the National Museum of American Jewish History, Data Arts, and the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. Teresa also worked as an arts and crafts director at a summer camp during college, and she has fond memories of how much her campers enjoyed working with clay. Teresa earned a Bachelor of Arts in Music from Gettysburg College. She lives in Philadelphia with her husband and daughter, and in her free time, Teresa enjoys running, brainstorming elaborate Halloween costumes, and singing karaoke. Paul Serena joined the Clay Studio in July of this year. Previously, he was a studio manager at the Perkins Center for the Arts in New Jersey for 13 years. He studied ceramic technology at the University of the Arts while also pursuing a major in painting. He attended Washington Township Public Schools in New Jersey, where there was a strong ceramic arts program, which is where he learned his love for clay. And we'll hear more about him later. And then we're going to have to help him write as pithy a bio as Teresa has to put on the website. Okay, welcome to you both. I'm going to start out by asking you our Lunch and Learn standard question, which is how and why did you make the brave decision to make your life in art? And I think I'm going to start with Paul. So Paul, can you answer that question about how you decided to become an artist?
Sure. Thank you. For me, I don't think that there was a decision. There was ever presented like, a question of what I was going to be when I grew up. So I always felt like as much as I knew I was right-handed, like I was just an artist and I was just going to be an artist. When I was really young, I thought I was going to be a professional doghouse builder, which I still really do enjoy, constructing little pagodas and houses and temples with clay. So maybe there's a part of that still peeking through. But yeah, it was always less of a decision of like, do I want to be an artist? Yes, I'm going to be an artist, and just like, what medium do I want to try? What do I want to explore? So I really enjoyed pursuing new avenues of art, trying and exploring and learning. And it's interesting that with pottery, I did not pick up working with clay as easily as I had with other mediums, painting and drawing, calligraphy. Pottery was a little bit more of a struggle for me to grasp. And but yeah, I stuck with it, and I really enjoy throwing and hand building and everything.
Yeah, well, you obviously became very skilled, so you worked hard. When you say that you sort of never had any doubt, there must have been some kind of model, like you knew that being an artist was something you could do. I feel like there are many people in the world who just don't even realize that it's a job or it's a life
Yeah,
pursuit. So
yeah.
do you remember why you knew that was possible?
I think it speaks to, when people say that words matter, I think it really does speak to that. And, words matter if it's negative, and words can matter if it's positive as well. So I just remember being told that I was going to be an artist.
Yeah.
It was kind of, like presented to me, like, oh, Paul, you are going to be an artist, and here's some art supplies, and so I always felt that that was presented in a positive way, and so yeah.
Yeah. So the people around you encouraged you
Mhm.
and gave you the tools you needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So it wasn't really ever a question of whether I wanted to work within the arts, but more of a question of what aspect of the arts I wanted to kind of work in and focus. I did, like you mentioned, like I went to U Arts for painting, and briefly before that, I was at the Art Institute for graphic design. So I was kind of like just jumping all over, and not really sure where I'd land. But yeah.
So how did the decision about clay eventually, become the thing?
Um, I think once I get comfortable with high school, for instance, like I had an excellent high school teacher, very tough, and but I think it was, for me, it was just a great structured environment that I needed to stick with it and to get to a level where I could actually see, oh, I understand this, and oh, I can actually make something that I'm proud of and happy with, and that is useful. Um, and Yeah, so that, I think, knowing that I had that pottery skill in my arsenal was just always like on the back burner in the back of my head, and I was always kind of assuming that I would always be something else.
Mm.
And pottery, by way of opportunity, kept coming back to me. For a while, I was working in Cape May County in a living history museum, and I was a historic interpreter of all the different buildings, and they had a pottery studio, and so the following summer, I did less jumping around between the different buildings, and I was basically the head potter. And so I got fell back in love with pottery, I think, in that stage, and that was in the early 2000s. Yeah, and then after a little bit of a hiatus with art altogether, I found myself at the Perkins Center for the Arts with another awesome opportunity, and now I found myself here at the Clay Studio with an amazing opportunity. So yeah, very excited about that.
Well, that's great. Well, and we're glad to have you. But it is, I hear you saying, I found myself, but really you work hard and you're creating these opportunities for yourself and making it happen. And that's amazing. I love that you were at a living history museum,
Mhm.
history being one of my loves. And yeah, it's interesting when you kind of let the opportunities guide you. But as I said, like you're not being, it's not like you're just letting the wind take you. You work hard at what you're doing and you look for the next opportunity, and then you take it. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing all that with us.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Teresa, how about you? What's the a very different place, not an artist, and as one of the other non-artists on the staff, or I should say non-visual artist, because you actually are an artist in a different way, unlike me. So tell us how that happened.
Sure. So one of my earliest memories is going to nursing homes with my dad, who was a self-taught artist, visual artist, and musician. And we would go and perform. He would play guitar. He also had if you're familiar with a one-man band, like he had this pole that had a tambourine and and he had one of the harmonica things. I have his harmonica. My dad's passed now, but he had like one of the, so he could play harmonica and play guitar at the same time. And so we would go to nursing homes and I would sing and dance with him. And it just sort of was always this thing that music and art were just part of our life, the way anything else was, a daily part of life. And my dad actually ended up being my primary caretaker when I was young. He was home on disability. So I spent this magical, sort of early years of my childhood just doing nothing but creating with my dad. And so I think that sort of like set that foundation that, it was never not a part of my life. And then I was fortunate enough to go to and we can get into a conversation about public education and how strongly I feel about that some other time. I was fortunate to go to a really well-funded, large public school that actually had, music history and music theory. And, I took every class I could. I was in band, I was in chorus, took all of those classes. And, at the time, I think I had thought I was going to study English in college. And one of my music teachers, actually the choir director who also taught music theory and did musicals, said, have you ever thought about being a music teacher? And I was like, well, maybe, and so I often say, one of the reasons I went to Gettysburg, I liked Gettysburg's music program, but they also gave me a lot of money. It was a funny thing at the time that private schools often ended up being a better deal because they could do that. And so I went there for music ed and totally thought I would be a music teacher, went the whole way through, student taught. And then I guess in our senior year, one of our professors started saying to us, she was very sort of tough love and very sort of didn't sugarcoat things. And she's like, so, all of you who think you're going to go and teach in your hometown or teach in a cool, whatever, I'm going to tell you, it's tough out there. She's like, arts are getting cut everywhere. There's not a lot of music teaching jobs. You may even want to think about, whether or not you would want to pick up courses towards doing elementary ed or special ed as well, just to make yourself more sort of
Credible.
Yeah. And I remember just being like, wait, what? And she was talking about, people who had graduated a few years before who were moving to North Dakota for jobs. And I just remember being like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And during that same time, I had worked at a summer camp. I worked at all through college as a crafts director. I did, conduct the children's choir there, things like that. But I remember also just, being in my early 20s and being a little bit of a mess and just being like, well, I want to move to a cool city and I want to, do different stuff. So I applied to grad school. I got into Temple for a music theory fellowship. And this is where the story, sorry, I don't know how to tell short stories. It's just not in my genetic makeup. I'm an oversharer.
Same, it's okay.
I moved, to Philly, and a week before I was supposed to start, I remember trying to get in touch with my advisor, and she was in Europe. And I remember just thinking I don't know that I know enough to do this. No one's giving me guidance on how I'm supposed to be a TA for undergrad music theory. And also what am I going to do with a theory degree? I don't want to be a composer. There's not really a great, freelance music theorist racket. So I sort of panicked again and I deferred. And a friend of the family who lived in the area was working at a .com, cdnow.com. I don't know if anybody remembers, that it was you could see it from the turnpike at Fort Washington. It had a big blue sign. It was one of the first music retailers online. And so I got a job working there for a year in customer service, focusing on music questions. And I worked both second and third shift in my time there, which was crazy.
So you were in the middle of the night, you were taking calls from people who were asking you questions about music.
I was, or emails, lots of emails saying
what key is this rock song in?
Oh, I like this classical song. It goes down, 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 down. I'm like, okay, Carmina Burana, I'm going to send you a link. And here's some other classical music you might like. Got a lot of, there's this song in this video game. I want more music like that. What's the song in this commercial? Lots of misheard lyrics. That was one of my favorite parts of it. But anyway, I realized there that I loved working with people and I loved helping people. And, I guess I already knew that about myself. I think I was just a little lost. And really the whole way I got into working in the nonprofit arts was the .com bubble burst. Eventually I worked my way up into marketing there. And so then I was sending emails to people that are like, I see you like this music. You might like this music too. And a job opened up. I found the Cultural Alliance job board. A job opened up at Temple Music Preparatory School as the registrar. And I got that job. And then from there, I went to the Cultural Alliance, and through a mentor at the Cultural Alliance, basically I realized like, oh, you can work on sort of the business side of the arts. Like that's a thing. Like there are all these other people that need to make this world like keep moving ahead. And I loved that. I was like, okay, all the stuff that I learned about, how to write and, marketing and all of those things, that also gets applied to the nonprofit arts. And so I ended up staying at the Cultural Alliance for 14 years, worked my way up from the membership assistant to the director of web and publications by the end. Like I revamped our website. I got to like do a lot of professional development. I wrote a few grants. I did our newsletter. And so that's kind of where the Swiss Army knife thing comes from. Like basically anything that they needed, I would try. And to the credit of the leadership there, anything I wanted to try, they were like, okay, if you can do the rest of your job and also, sit on a grant panel or take a coding class, like by all means. So that's sort of what I did. And then unfortunately from there was some downsizing, which often happens in the arts. And then I went to data arts, and then I was at the Jewish Museum. And I think the Jewish Museum, the big thing I figured out was, oh, I like actually being surrounded by the I don't want to use the word product, but by the inspiration. The art, yeah.
Yeah.
Like being at a service organization for so many years was amazing, and we supported all of these other arts organizations, right? But it was very much like just being in an administrative office, unless you were going to meet with members or things. And like walking into the museum every day, it's like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe you all get to do this. Like I can like, on my way to the bathroom, like walk through the, exhibits. And so that really, I think that made me realize that being in an actual producing or creating organization was maybe a good fit for me. Anyway, that's my crazy story.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I love that there's really a through line of service, starting from what you did with your dad, going to nursing homes, and the point of that was to have fun together and to get, for him, I'm sure, just to get to play, but it was for the enjoyment of the people there, and then all the way to now. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it, that it takes this long? And you're not the first person. I felt the same way. I've heard other people say, like, you don't know that these jobs exist when you're growing up. I mean, it's like one thing to know that you want to be an artist, but for those of us who just sort of like love art and find that we want to be near it, you don't really get, I don't think I knew what a curator was until I was in college, for sure. And the other thing, helping people service. Both of you talked about wanting to, like, where Paul said he was excited to be in the city, and you said you wanted to live in the city. It's just, and it's like, that speaks to those of us who just love being surrounded by energy and creativity and other people who are in the same kind of boat. I realized that I asked other people for their moments of joy, and then I just kept talking. So if anyone else has moments of joy, we'll come back to that at the end. Stick something in the chat and I'll ask you about it at the end. See, Raymond even put something in there. The moment of, he put an image for everyone to look at in the chat of what the new Claymobile design looks like. So if anyone feels like taking a look at that. And then we'll really come full circle at the end and tell everyone about the pavers, right, Teresa? More marketing. Okay, so now we're going to look at some images. I'm going to share my screen with you. And we'll go back to Paul and ask him to talk a little bit about the images that he has shared with us. So this is a really good one to start out with, because it is both a sort of pagoda or house form, and it also kind of looks like a dog. So we've got both of these things that you talked about, or maybe a dog behind. Anyway, okay, sorry, go ahead, Paul. Tell us about this one.
So this is an older piece, and I believe this is shortly after I joined Perkins Center for the Arts. I got very interested in, this is the only, I think, like lidded box or jar that I had done. The other pieces in this, I guess you could call it a series, or more bottle forms. The same principle of the feet and the little awning or roof. I find it most fascinating. This piece taught me about engaging people around me, and also learning from their perception of it. Like, people will see things in my work that I would never think of or come to conclusions of. So these pots lovingly became called butt pots, because they look like little tushies with little legs. And I thought it was adorable. It was definitely not something that I was conscious about going for. But
So I was
yeah,
right. It's like a little
yeah,
bum.
yeah, little bums. Yeah, and this piece was fired at a wood kiln in Elmer, New Jersey, at Apple Farm.
Oh, Apple Farm. Yeah, that's a great place.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that idea that it's anthropomorphic to a certain extent. I mean, there are so many ways for the vessel form to slip towards a body form, and for clay to reflect, I mean, fleshiness. That's just sort of the nature. It's almost hard to not refer to these things. So I
Yeah.
actually think that people seeing that, if it wasn't intended, it just means that it's a, it's a successful form because it is universal. I don't know.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like you were concerned that people thought they look like bums. So I guess I don't know
Not at
to
all.
try to justify it for you. Okay, how about this one?
Yeah, so this is another wood fire piece. I imagine the vessel would be used as a vase. Vases are my outlet for really exploring pottery with the approach of like sculpture and form. I primarily make the functional utilitarian ware, mugs, bowls, and everything. When I would gear up a body of work for a wood firing, typically like 30 or 40 pieces, I would really challenge myself to get back into the design aspect, throwing, cutting, altering, reassembling. And most every work that's like this piece would start off in my sketchbook. So I would draw ideas out, and then just like a puzzle, putting a puzzle together, I would work through planning it and how I was going to construct them and how it was going to be supported. And yeah, so this is, I don't think I have a title for this. A lot of people referred to my vessels like this as spaceships. So I kind of leaned into that a little bit. So I believe this one, I was calling an egg spaceship. And yeah, this was fired in a wood kiln with a, I believe that's Malcolm's Shino on it.
More
Yeah.
eggs.
Yeah. So there's the one large opening at the top center, and then there's 4 smaller openings into the vessel itself. So, and I've never seen this with an arrangement in it. So
I'm sort of
maybe one. Yeah.
depends on the scale, but I'm imagining just like eggs sitting on all the little holes. I don't know. Anyway, and I
Yeah.
love the way you're using the slab feet, in connection with the 3-dimensional vessel form, and that it has a bit of a furniture feel to it when you add those together.
Yeah, I believe I was kind of engrossing myself in studying the work of like Betty Woodman and like how she would incorporate like 2-dimensional forms, silhouettes with her work and everything. So yeah, I don't know that I've even thought about that until we're talking about that right now. But yeah, at the time I was learning about her and studying. So it's interesting how like things are influenced, and you might not really realize how your work is changing or being influenced by what you're surrounding yourself with until years later. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Have you seen the Fabric Workshop right now has a show up that has some really great pieces by Betty. So
No,
you should go check that out. The whole top floor is, it's all ceramic and fiber. There's also a big Viola Fry and some Toshiko Takaizu. It's really, I highly recommend it.
Very cool. Okay. Another wood fire piece, a pitcher vessel. Bottom is just exposed clay with a flashing slip, and the rest of it is a single glaze that in the cooling process develops crystals. So you get that really cool look to it. So
Oh,
yeah.
it's beautiful.
Thank you. This one is not wood fired. This is electric fired. And my stepmother-in-law gave me a collection of driftwood from her lake, and I kind of more or less designed a pot around it. So yeah, so that is, I don't think it's shown in the image, but I did bind the pot like a button to the lid. So it's on there. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, the wood and ceramic are so, well balanced, and it's great. It's a great piece.
This was a birthday gift to my sister-in-law, who loves Wonder Woman. I have a photograph of her and my husband and brother-in-law as when they were kids in their, what were they called? Underoos, where they would have the superhero. So yeah, so she was Wonder Woman and had a little rope in her hand and everything. I thought it was adorable. So yeah, this is a greenware photograph of the sculpt the greenware stage, ready to get dried out and fired. And I have to get a decent photograph of it all glazed and colorful.
Yeah, with the flowers in it, for
Yeah,
sure.
it turned out
I'm
great.
excited to see that. Also, I may have had Wonder Woman underoos. Teresa did.
This is another wood-fired vase. Again, this concept started off as like a sketch. The studio I was in, we have a large amount of slip casting molds, much like the clay studio does. And one of them was for a bird bath. And I was just kind of obsessed with figuring out a way I can incorporate that in a piece. So the bottom part is basically two bird bath basins put together. And then, yeah. So with the scalloped edges, maybe you can see a little bit of like the bird bath scalloped, shell kind of form. With that, the top part is wheel thrown and altered, and I believe the egg feet are all a sculpt. And there might be 3 glazes on this. It could just be 2. So yeah, overwhelming a response to this one was that it reminded them of Little Shop of Horrors. So I think I had this in a show once, and I named it Audrey too. So
And how big is
and
this
I'm
one?
okay with it. What's that?
How big is it?
That one stands probably maybe 16 inches.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, I mean, people have these sort of nostalgic and memories that they apply to things. It's just means they're having a positive response to it, right? I love these glazes.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, another wood-fired piece, wheel thrown, and also hand built, altered. And I call this one the Scarab Vase. And again, there's the central opening and then smaller openings on the sides of that.
And
I was really happy with the way, the glazes worked out. And the
It's-
size, I think this is either the same height or a little bit taller than the previous one, than Audrey. So, yeah.
And for you, does that refer to the famous Scarab Vase by Adelaide Alsop Robino? Do you know that piece?
No, but I'm going to write it down.
Okay, it's a really wonderful. It's at the Everson Museum in Syracuse, and Adelaide Alsop Robino was sort of a godmother of studio ceramics in the early 20th century. She called it the apotheosis of the toiler, or the Scarab Vase, and it's carved all over with scarabs. She said it took 1,000 hours. So,
oh my gosh, wow.
It's great. It's a good, and it, the color is similar. So it's a really good connection.
Yeah.
I totally thought of Beatles when I saw this too. So. Oh, well,
Cool.
Let's back up for a second. Thank you, Paul. And I think, is it true that your work is on view in one of the cases on the landing?
Yeah, right outside the 3rd floor classroom. And this lake case, I've got some work up there.
Yeah, so if anybody is in person at the Clay Studio, please go and check out Paul's work, and we'll come back to you with another question after we look at some pictures of Teresa. Thank you. All right, so we have the non-visual artist had to pull some images to represent her creative life. So do you want to tell us about these pictures, Teresa?
Sure. So over there on the right is my dad playing guitar, probably at a bar or restaurant somewhere. And the upper left is one of my earliest pictures, music pictures, strumming my dad's guitar. And then the bottom one is in my grandparents' basement in Richmond, Virginia. For a little Philly flavor, my dad's wearing a Big Mean Green Machine t-shirt. He was a big Eagles fan. And I think I might be wearing a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup shirt, which also at South Central PA is where I grew up. So a lot of PA connection there. But that's like that was a pretty common scene. My dad on guitar and me on whatever I could find or singing with him. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so that is me in South Pacific. Love those parrot shorts. That would have been junior or senior year of high school. I did a couple musicals because I did sort of community productions too, so I can't remember which year that was. And then on the right is me with my grandmother, who we all called Googs. I was the first grandchild, and I said her name, Gugu. And so it stuck. So she was Googs for the rest of her life. And Googs was actually a musician. She was a really talented pianist. So growing up, I always loved hearing her play. And that's my senior recital at Gettysburg. We're in the art gallery afterwards. She was really, really proud. I also just sort of love that the pictures, that were not centered. Everything about it just charms me. Yeah, it was a really great day.
It's a good one. I see Abby's face really strongly in that picture.
Yeah. So this is me conducting the kids at summer camp, Camp Nawakwa, Arentsville, PA, a little tiny town outside of Gettysburg. Yeah, I don't know that there's much more to say about it. I loved it. I just loved every week having another group of kids. I conducted the adults too when they had family camp there, but the kids were just something special. I loved getting down on the floor with them. I loved how sort of excited they were. I love kid voices. So yeah. And I'm not sure, I'm clearly trying to get them to enunciate. I'm clearly saying the words there. I wish I could remember what song we were singing.
No, that's great. Well, and that's so connected to the work that we do, the place you do with kids. I decided I had to put these two together. So Teresa sent me these pictures and I sort of arranged them.
Yeah,
I couldn't help it. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So I have still had music in my life. We have a piano. I sang with the Choral Arts Society of Philadelphia for a couple of years, actually, and got to do St. Matthew's Passion by Bach at the Kimmel Center, and that was amazing. That was all before I became a working parent, and it just, it was tough to get to the rehearsals and all of that. Maybe I'll get back to some kind of choral singing at some point, but I do love karaoke pre-pandemic. So that's me in Pittsburgh. A friend took that photo, and another friend said, "Are you doing stand-up comedy or are you actually singing there?" But I get very into it when I'm singing. And on the right there is, I don't know if anybody knows the movie Sing, the animated movie. Abby was Ash, the hedgehog. Hedgehog? Yeah. For Halloween one year. And this is not even on Halloween. She just loved morphing into Ash like that entire year. She would get out the wig and the microphone and sing. I have a lot of videos of Abby singing around our house. So yeah, keeping that going.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I just got a piano recently, so feel free to come over and give me lessons because I haven't done that since second grade, but I've got the piano.
It'll come back to you.
I also love that I was also in band and chorus and musicals, and I loved it, but I was heartily not very talented, so it didn't go anywhere, but I really loved doing it at the time. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to, I just want to make sure everyone sees the nice comments happening in the chat. And Shannon says we need to put together a TCS band. I agree. We definitely at least need to just buy our own karaoke machine and do it on the roof
Yeah.
deck.
I think that's
Oh,
true.
Paul's gonna do it too.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. We'll do some duets.
Awesome. I'm into it.
Oh, well, we could just, at the end, you guys could sing us out. Just
Uh,
throwing that out there. Okay, so let's see. We're gonna stop the share, and then I'm going to go back to Paul and ask about your job at the Clay Studio, and what do you do here? I know you haven't been here for very long. Like, what's maybe the most surprising thing, or the thing, or the thing you've enjoyed the most so far?
I am the pottery tech at the Clay Studio. I work with Corinne, who was also the pottery tech. She's been an excellent teacher, very patient with me, which is appreciated. Like I said before, I really enjoy working in the city. Philadelphia always felt like a second home to me. There's always like a calm that comes over me when I'm going over the bridge. So I really do enjoy the city. Like I said before, it's like a huge opportunity, and so far I'm really enjoying it. It's not surprisingly what I expected it to be when people ask me about like starting at the Clay Studio and what will you be doing there, and my response was basically what I have been doing the last 13 years, probably times 10. And so far that's pretty much been true. It's a lot of the same, but also brand new ways of doing things, and learning the culture of a whole nother arts organization, which has been cool. And yeah.
So walk us through a day. You come in the morning, and what do you do?
Yeah.
Check the accountants, or?
Yeah, so each day is a little bit different. So when you walk in, you kind of assess, basically, like where you're at with the kiln schedule, and what are the needs there, and you can base your day around that. Some days it's focusing on mixing glazes, and other days reorganizing something. And a lot of times helping out other departments, or helping move heavy furniture or artwork. And I'm glad to take a break from learning to come to do these things.
Yeah, and helping the students. I assume you've gotten probably already a lot of interaction with the.
Yeah. So as terrible as I am with names, I am proud of myself for being able to remember quite a few student names. That's always something that's enjoyable, being assured that I have something to offer, if it's advice or if it's guidance, or shared knowledge about something. And I would say, I guess, that the thing I like best, or so far with working with the Clay Studio, is like feeling that I'm like working with a team, like I said, Corinne's been great, and I'm really enjoying having a teammate and to kind of like work out tasks and do troubleshooting, and problem solving. And I like puzzles. I don't know if I mentioned that with my work, but the design aspect of it, I kind of approach it as a puzzle and kind of work things through. So yeah.
That's great. I feel the same way about working on a team. I think it's so much more enjoyable to kind of go through a task engaged with somebody else, and kind of being able to share your expertise to get to the best solution. And just so everyone knows, I have invited Corinne and Karen to be on Lunch and Learn, but they both were like, every time I ask them, they say, "I'll wait till next time." So
I'll work on Corinne, since
yeah,
since I did it. So
yeah, I think this is making her say yes. She just needed, she wanted a little more time. When you said puzzles and your work, it made me think that a couple of them had a similar aspect to the puzzle jugs and puzzle pitchers from the 18th century. Do you know about those, that like they have tubes around them, and you have to kind of cover one part with your finger, so if you don't know how to use it, when you try to drink, you just like
Mhm.
spill it all over yourself.
Yeah,
Has the
I've made quite a few of those.
You have? Okay, great.
I actually have a commission that I'm sitting on to make more for the Living History Museum that I mentioned
I was
earlier.
just thinking, I bet the Living History Museum wants them.
Yeah, I think I had the poem memorized if you wanted to hear it.
I definitely do.
Okay, so yeah, like Jennifer said, that it would be a puzzle mug, an old tavern gag or prank, a standard beer flight with a bunch of holes right below the rim, so you can obviously drink like you would a regular mug. And the rim is kind of fat, and there's tiny little cups all around the rim, and so that's the puzzle, is how to drink from it. And the poem, I believe, says, "Come, gentlemen, come try your skill. I'll hold a wager, if you will, that you can't drink this liquor all without you spill or let some fall." Wow, yeah.
Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I had to write that a couple times on some mugs and stamp them and everything. So yeah.
That's great. I learned recently, like I knew about them from the 18th century, but I learned recently that actually Pythagoras, the mathematician, was is credited as making the first puzzle jug.
Wow.
So I need to
Very cool.
greedy cups. Shannon says greedy cups. Anyway, I have to read more about that. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you ended with a poem, so then it's totally reasonable for Teresa to end with a song. I'm just saying. Anyway, so tell us about your job and what your either most surprising or favorite part is. Yeah.
Sure. So I'm the development manager. So I'm part of a development department of two, myself and our development director, Tracy. And we are responsible for, raising funds so that the clay studio can continue to do the great work that it does. There, I think like most jobs, there's not a typical day, but most days involve some balance of lots of writing, whether it's an application or a report, lots of, responding to, we have so many, in addition to foundations and sort of, government organizations, we have so many generous individual donors that, we want to make sure that we acknowledge and answer questions and things like that. That's actually one of my favorite parts, is getting to have that. It reminds me of all the things that I've loved about other jobs, whether it was membership or whatever, because I guess there is that service aspect to it that I had talked about earlier. It's helping someone, or there's sort of almost like a partnership, right? We're doing something together. They're supporting an organization. I'm helping them through that process. We both are sort of working towards the same good end goal. So I really actually like that part. Is this an okay time for me to talk about bricks?
Yes, I think that's a great time for you.
I would say one of the fun surprises, and I've been here for about 4 months, has been the brick campaign. Folks who sort of want to show their support for the clay studio, support our capital campaign, and see their name in brick. I mean, I don't know who hasn't always wanted that. They'll be going in our sculpture garden, and there's a link on our website, and it's been really successful, and it's been fun to see folks from all different, since I haven't been here that long, it's cool to see people, their different histories with the clay studio. It's also been fun. Everyone, I think, has a little bit of brick anxiety, as people checking in saying like, does that sound like a good thing to say on my brick? Like, yeah, you go with it. That's great.
I want to hear, what are the things they're worried about?
I think it's a little bit of just, thank you, Raymond, that's spectacular. I think it's more just, what's everyone else doing? What do most people, making sure that they're not, an outlier. And the vast majority of people, I would say, are doing their names or, loved ones' names. We have a couple memorial bricks, but we have had a few little clever phrases or puns. I think one of my favorites so far has been fired up, which are fired up for the clay studio, which I think is pretty cute. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun. And then to echo Paul, I think one of my favorite things about working in the nonprofit arts in general has been just, it tends to attract a certain type of person, I think. And I think that sort of sense of being a part of a team, that sense of a shared goal, shared mission. Obviously for me, working at the Cultural Alliance for so long, I had sort of interacted with the Clay Studio over the years. And I always, just sort of admired the organization and its mission and sort of its scrappy beginnings. I love a scrappy origin story. And the work that we do with the Claymobile for kids in Philadelphia, as a parent of a, public school kid in Philly, it's amazing what what the Claymobile team is able to accomplish. So it feels awesome to be some little part of that.
Yeah. And I'll reiterate that you often go back to that service idea. Even your job at the music thing was related to helping people. So I think we have a couple minutes left to both ask you what you're excited about for the new building, and then open it back up if anyone has their moment of joy that I skipped over earlier. I feel like I'm taking up too many moments of joy, but Jen Martin sent me this picture. This is my office in the new building. And I have both a window and I'll have a door. Not that I want to keep people out, but for those of you who know that my desk is just like in the back of the shop right now, it's pretty exciting to have a real office to look forward to. And I will always welcome anybody into it, but that's what one of the many things I'm looking forward to. That's the super selfish thing, besides the better bathroom situation. But what do you guys think that you're looking forward to? Either some little selfish thing like me, or maybe a bigger idea with the new building. Paul.
Oh man, Paul. Well, as Paul is currently sitting at my desk at the Clay Studio, and that white wall directly behind him is the bathroom. So definitely some selfish thing. That would be cool. I think one of the things I've gotten to do some writing on this, right? Talking about what this means for us. And so, I think that being part of that community in South Kensington, seeing how many Claymobile sites are within a mile of that building. Also for me, like, my type of travel is like doing a little planning and then being like, okay, what can I find by just walking around? So the idea of working in a different neighborhood, getting off at a different subway stop and sort of spending time there is really, really exciting to me.
Yeah, different lunch places.
Different lunch places, for sure.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
How about you, Paul?
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited about the new building being a new building. First and foremost, that's like not replacing doorknobs anymore or fixing toilets, calling electrician all the time. Definitely excited about all that. And yeah, just those windows. I did get a hard hat tour. It's really exciting to see all those windows. Corinne and I believe our office will even have a window, which is like, wow. So that's cool. Yeah, so and the layout of it, and I think is also an exciting thing, like encouraging different departments to operate within the same spaces. I think is an exciting thing to look forward to. And artists and students will be able to see each other's work and in the process. And
yeah, that's going to be a big deal. I agree. Everybody working together, and I don't know, the roof deck where we can eat lunch together, and those pavers in the sculpture garden. It's going to be so nice to see everyone's name. So anyway, part of why we're talking about this a lot is because the deadline to order your paver is tomorrow. So if anyone wants to do that, it's $150 donation to the Clay Studio, and you get to pick what you want engraved on your paver.
And if you have any questions, you're happy to, feel free to email me or call me. My info is on the website.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone else out there have a moment of joy or a favorite lunch that they want to share? There's Jen. Have any Any new building things to share there, Jen? You've been over there a lot.
My moment of joy yesterday was we're getting a lot of plywood backed walls so that we don't have to worry about where to hang things. And the plywood was going up on one side. So that was very exciting.
In the gallery?
Not in the gallery, up in the school.
Okay,
Actually,
great.
in the studios.
It's going to be
Always.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Super. That's a good one.
I like the new in the classrooms, the new tables they won't have canvas on top of them anymore.
That's great. Easier to clean, right, Raymond?
Right.
Cool.
And you don't get that texture in your pieces.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's always, I always tell my students, you gotta erase that
Yeah.
from your slab.
We've got clapping for that. Yeah, thanks, Andre. Well, that's great. We will be excited to share hard hat tours and then share the new building with you. But if everybody wants to come to our Clay Fest, please mark your calendar. It is September 18th, which is a Saturday. So you'll get to, it's going to be right in front of or next to the Clay Studio building, and there'll be tours of the construction site by, scheduled throughout the day. So come in and make some clay things, print a tote bag with one of the designs that Shannon is in the process of designing right now, and walk around the new building. It's going to be great. So thanks, everybody. I hope you have a lovely day. We are taking 2 weeks off from Lunch and Learn, which we don't usually do, but please do join us the 3rd week from now. We'll be back talking about this show coming up called A Proper Sendoff. It's the last exhibition in this current building. Lots of exciting things happening around that. Thanks to Paul and Teresa for closing out our summer season of Lunch and Learn, and we'll see everybody in a few weeks. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.